Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jayam Vishnu Padmaramamsa Parivajikachayasta Tadarshata Shri Shri Madhas Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shalaridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mathura Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Dwarka Dham Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Manamaya Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Gaura Premanandi Hari Bol All glories to Samdavaris Hare Krishna All glories to Samdavaris Hare Krishna All glories to Samdavaris Hare Krishna Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutadaya Shri Bhakti Vikash Swami Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this is a reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Canto 5, Chapter 18, text number 9. This is a very famous verse, actually, in the Bhagavatam, by the way. That's right. I have to use one of these to read now. Swastyastu vishvasya kalaha prasidatam Jayantu bhutani shivam mitodhiha manascha bhadram bhajatada avishyatam no mater apyahaituki Swastyastu vishvasya kalaha prasidatam Jayantu bhutani shivam mitodhiha Manascha bhadram bhajatada dhokshaje Avishyatam no matir apyahaituki. Oh, we're waiting for one more. Okay. Swastyastu vishvasya kalaha prasidatam Jayantu bhutani shivam mitodhiha Manascha bhadram bhajatada dhokshaje Avishyatam no matirapyahaituki. Others chant. Swastyastu vishvasya kalaha prasidatam Jayantu bhutani shivam mitodhiha Manascha bhadram bhajatada dhokshaje Aveshyatam no bhagatam kriki. Swastyastu vishvasya kalaha prasidatam Dhyayantu bhutani shivam vitobdiya. Vanascha badram bhajatara dhokshaje. Avishyatam no matirapya haituki. Ladies. Swasti, auspiciousness. Astu, let there be. Vishvasya, of the entire universe. Kalaha, the envious. And they have a parenthetical comment here. It says, almost everyone. Prasidatam, let them be pacified. Dhyayantu, let them consider. Bhutani, all the living entities. Shivam, auspiciousness. Mittaha, mutual. Tiya, by their intelligence. Manaha, the mind. Cha, and. Padram, calmness. Bhajatat, let it experience. Adhokshaje, in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond the perception of mind, intelligence, and senses. Avishyatam, let it be absorbed. Naha, or. Mattihi, intelligence. Api, indeed. Ahaituki, without any motive. So translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. So this is a long purport. May there be good fortune throughout the universe, and may all envious persons be pacified. May all living entities become calm by practicing bhakti yoga, for by accepting devotional service, they will think of each other's welfare. Therefore, let us all engage in the service of the Supreme Transcendence, Lord Sri Krishna, and always remain absorbed in thought of Him. So, everybody please repeat responsively. May there be good fortune throughout the universe. And may all envious persons be pacified. May all living entities become calm by practicing bhakti yoga. For by accepting devotional service, they will think of each other's welfare. Therefore, let us all engage in the service of the Supreme Transcendence, Lord Sri Krishna, and always remain absorbed in thought of Him. Purport. The following verse describes a Vaishnava. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavinebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Just like a desire tree, a Vaishnava can fulfill all the desires of anyone who takes shelter of his lotus feet. Prahlada Maharaja is a typical Vaishnava. He prays not for himself, but for all living entities, the gentle, the envious, and the mischievous. He always thought of the welfare of mischievous persons like his father, Hiranyakashipu. Prahlada Maharaja did not ask for anything for himself. Rather, he prayed for the Lord to excuse his demoniac father. This is the attitude of a Vaishnava, who always thinks of the welfare of the entire universe. Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavata Dharma are meant for persons who are completely free of envy. Paramanimatsaranam. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj prays in this verse, Kalaha prasidatam. May all the envious persons be pacified. The material world is full of envious persons, but if one frees himself of envy, he becomes liberal in his social dealings and can think of others' welfare. Anyone who takes up Krishna consciousness and engages himself completely in the service of the Lord cleanses his mind of all envy. Manascha badram bhajatad hokshaje. Therefore, we should pray to Lord Nrsimhadeva to sit in our hearts. We should pray, Bahir Nrsimho Hridaye Nrsimha. Let Nrsimhadev sit in the core of my heart, killing all my bad propensities. Let my mind become clean so that I may peacefully worship the Lord and bring peace to the entire world. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura has given us a very fine purport in this regard. Whenever one offers a prayer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one always requests some benediction from him. Even pure, nishkama devotees pray for some benediction, as instructed by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Shikshashtaka. Ai nanda tanujya kinkaram patitam mam vishame bhavam budhao kripaya tavapad pankaja stitadhuli sadrusham vichintaya. O son of Maharaj Nanda, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from the ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. In another prayer, Lord Chaitanya says, Mama janmani janmanishvare bhavatad bhaktir ahaitiki tvaye. Life after life, kindly let me have unalloyed love and devotion at your Lordship's lotus feet. When Prahlada Maharaj chants Om Namo Bhagavate Narasimhaya, he prays for a benediction from the Lord. But because he is also an exalted Vaishnava, he wants nothing for his personal sense gratification. The first desire expressed in this prayer is Svastyastu Vishvasya. Let there be good fortune throughout the universe. Prahlad Maharaj thus requested the Lord to be merciful to everyone, including his father, a most envious person. According to Chanakya Pandita, there are two kinds of envious living entities. One is a snake, and the other is the man like Hiranyakashipu, who is by nature envious of everyone, even of his father or son. Hiranyakashipu was envious of his little son Prahlada, but Prahlad Maharaj asked a benediction for the benefit of his father. Hiranyakashipu was very envious of devotees, but Prahlada wished that his father and other demons like him would give up their envious nature by the grace of the Lord and stop harassing the devotees. Kalaha prasidatam. The difficulty is that the kala, envious living entity, is rarely pacified. One kind of kala, the snake, can be pacified simply by mantras or by the action of a particular herb. Mantroshadi vashaha sarpaha kalakena nivaryate. An envious person, however, cannot be pacified by any means. Therefore, Prahlada Maharaj prays that all envious persons may undergo a change of heart and think of welfare of others. If the Krishna consciousness movement spreads all over the world, and if by the grace of Krishna everyone accepts it, the thinking of envious people will change. Everyone will think of the welfare of others. Therefore, Prahlada Maharaj prays, Shivam mito diya. In material activities, everyone is envious of others. But in Krishna consciousness, no one is envious of anyone else. Everyone else thinks of the welfare of others. Therefore, Prahlada Maharaj prays that everyone's mind may become gentle by being fixed at the lotus feet of Krishna. Bhajatad. As indicated elsewhere in Srimad Bhagavatam, Savai Manaha Krishna Padaravindayoho. As advised by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, Manmana Bhavanad Bhaktaha. One should constantly think of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Then one's mind will certainly be cleansed. Cheto darpana marjanam. Materialists always think of sense gratification, but Prahlada Maharaj prays that the Lord's mercy will change their minds and they will stop thinking of sense gratification. If they think of Krishna always, everything will be all right. Some people argue that if everyone thought of Krishna in that way, the whole universe would be vacated, because everyone would go back home, back to Godhead. However, Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura says that this is impossible because the living entities are innumerable. If one set of living entities is actually delivered by the Krishna consciousness movement, another set will fill the entire universe. Om Aginatamandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Meditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vidamscha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shmati Bhakti Vedanta Swamaniti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kriprasindubheva Cha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. As already mentioned, this is a famous prayer by Sri Prahlad Maharaj. So he's praying to Lord Nrsingadev to somehow or other free the living entities from their envious nature, and that if they are somehow or other engaged in the service of the Lord, then they will forget their envy and think of everybody's welfare. So this is a wonderful prayer, and it's a prayer that comes naturally from the topmost Vaishnavas, the Mahabhagavatas. So a Mahabhagavata has the following qualities. He is, Sarva Bhuteshu Jatmanam Bhagavad Bhavamatmanaha Bhutani Bhagavat Yatman Yeshamatma Yesham Bhagavat Tottamaha. That the topmost devotee, he sees the soul of all souls, Krishna, within everything. And therefore, he sees everything as eternally situated in the Supreme Lord. And all that there is, it comes from the Supreme Lord. So this is the vision of the Mahabhagavata. And only the Mahabhagavata, or topmost devotee, is truly free from envy. So once we understand this proposition, this organizes a lot of data in the world. We can understand why the world is so troublesome as it is. Even in our own, Iskcon society, we see that there are people who are at different levels of consciousness, spiritual consciousness, certainly on the path, but nonetheless, we wouldn't call them Mahabhagavatas. Just like, for example, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's the very wonderful story of Dhruva Maharaj, and how there was Dhruva Maharaj. He wanted to sit on the lap of his father, Maharaj Uttanapad, but Maharaj Uttanapad wouldn't let him sit on the lap, and his Queen Suruchi, his stepmother, was very cruel and said to him, he said, if you want to sit on the lap of your father and get a kingdom like your father, then you have to pray to Lord Narayan to take birth from my womb. And then you will have the privilege of being able to sit on your father's lap and inherit his kingdom. So, Queen Suruchi, Jai, Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanumanji ki Jai. So Queen Suruchi was a Vaishnavi. She's a Vaishnava because she's giving correct advice. You should worship Lord Narayan. She understands that Lord Narayan is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jai, Shri Radha Parthasarthi Lalita Vishaka, Shri Gornatai. Jai, Hare Krishna. So so she's a Vaishnava. She's Vaishnavi. She knows who Lord Narayan is. She knows the supreme position of the Lord. Yet she's envious. So being envious is a very rare quality, even among Vaishnavas. So therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami, he says in the Nectar of Instruction, the Sri Upadeshamrita, that he talks about 3 grades of devotees. The first grade is one who chants Hare Krishna, one who takes the name of the Lord. And he's an initiated devotee generally. So, there's the verse. So, the second grade of devotee, he's initiated and is engaged in worshiping the deity in the temple. So he's doing the puja, he's doing the arti, etc., and so forth like that. But the devotee, the topmost devotee, who Srila Rupa Goswami says we should serve faithfully, we should offer humble we should without reservation serve faithfully, he is free from envy. Nindari shunya ridamipsita sangha labdhya. So these other 2 classes of devotees, Kanishta Adhikari and even Madhyama Adhikari, they're not free from envy. They're getting free from envy, but they're not free from envy. Certainly not yet. And even in the position of a Kanishta Adhikari, you may not be even interested in getting free of envy. Just like, very interesting, there's Daksha Maharaj. He's another Vaishnava. So he offered these prayers called Hamsaguya prayers, the 6th canto of Bhagavatam. And Hare Krishna, you sing something? Okay. Yeah. So if those who are chanting want to chant, it's probably better to go outside or something like that. It's kind of, mind somewhere else. Hare Krishna. So so Daksha Maharaj. So Daksha Maharaj, he's praying to the Supreme Lord that he can fulfill his prescribed duty of populating the universe through procreation, through having, through the act of sexual intercourse to have more children, have good children, populate. And so he performed austerities and even got the darshan, the direct darshan of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. But Lord Vishnu told him, he says, I'm very glad that you're doing the service, but you will have many nice children, and like you, they will remain in this material world. So, and then finally, Narada Muni came to his children, 2 kinds. One is the Haryashvas, there's 10,000 children, and then Narada Muni delivered them, and from the cycle of birth and death. And Daksha Maharaj, he was not happy with that. And then he had another 1,000 sons, Havalashvas. And Narada Muni also came and he also preached to them, and they also went back to Godhead. And then finally, Narada Muni came to pacify Daksha Maharaj. And Daksha Maharaj, he was envious. He was still envious, and therefore he cursed Narada Muni. So even your Vaishnav, or even the value of worshiping Lord Narayan, it doesn't mean you're not envious. So how to become non-envious? There's really no other way but to take shelter of those who are non-envious. So, this begins with the sadhu seva, those who are free from all vice. Shushusho shradanasya vasudeva kataruchi syan mahatseviya vipra punyatirtha nishevanat. That by rendering such service to such great souls, that great service is done and one gains affinity by hearing the messages of Vasudeva. So one of the characteristics of making spiritual advancement is one's attachment to the holy name of the Lord, one's attachment to hearing the topics about the Lord, and also one's simultaneous disinterest in material life. So, Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya Andakar Yahan Krishna Tan Maya Sarva Adhikar. That wherever there is light, there cannot be darkness. Similarly, wherever there is Krishna, then there cannot be Maya. So therefore, one of the characteristics of the Mahabhagavata is he's always engaged in the service of Krishna. Shushrushaya bhajana vigyam ananyam anyam. So, nindari shunya hidamipsita sangha labdhya. That such a person, he's incessantly engaged, he's always engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord. So, now the question comes up is, what is a Vaishnava? So, you see someone wearing tilak, you sing the neck beads and so forth, and then, understand this is a person who's a devotee of Lord Vishnu, no question about it. Such people, they understand the value of the worship, but still there's some purity necessary. So such people, they chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, but they chant offensively. There's still some offenses or some separatism from the Supreme Lord. And so such persons are analyzed, according to our acharyas, as not precisely being Vaishnava, but being what is called Vaishnava Praya. So Vaishnava Praya is someone who's aspiring to be a Vaishnava. He's making some advancement, he's taken up the process, but he's still on the path. Now, a Vaishnava is understood to be someone who's chanted the Supreme Lord's holy name purely at least once. This is not namabhas, not without offenses, but actually purely chanted. So such a Vaishnava, as soon as he purely chants the Hare Krishna mantra, now that chanting is also called Shastriya, that he's chanted the mantra according to the prescriptions of the revealed scriptures and is given by the acharyas. His chanting is Shastriya. In other words, he's not committing all the other offenses that we read about in Padma Purana and so forth. He's not blaspheming devotees. He's attentive to the order of his spiritual master. And so forth, like that. He's not giving an imaginary interpretation of the holy name of the Lord, or following it for utilitarian purposes, and so forth, like that. So such chanting is called Shastriya. And so this is a very important point for all devotees, is that devotional service is executed according to the revealed scriptures and according to the direction of the great sages. Tatradadana muniyo jnanavairagi yuktvayam pashyantyatmani chatmanam bhakti sruta grahitaya. That this is probably one of the most important verses in the Bhagavatam, since Srila Prabhupada in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita also quotes this exact same verse and gives the full purport from the Bhagavatam, repeats it in another place in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So, important point is that Pashyanti Atmani Chatmanam Bhakti Sutta Grihitaya, that the seriously inquisitive sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, he renders service, devotional service, according to what he has heard from the Vedanta Shrutis. So a very important point here is that ultimately, a devotee, he follows in the footsteps of the great sages. And the great sages, they follow the Supreme Lord. So the Supreme Lord is revealed in the Vedic scriptures, in the Vedic literatures. So the path taken by the great sages is based on this Vedanta Shruti. So a Vaishnava, someone who has at least chanted the holy name of the Lord at least once purely, his devotional service will be in terms, will thenceforward be according to the orders of the Supreme Lord. So one of the qualities of a Vaishnava is that he becomes completely disinterested in any kind of material activity. There's just nothing there. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would say to people would go for darshan, they see the Lord. I said, oh, you've seen the Lord? But have you also seen Maya? So if you've seen Maya, then how are you seeing the Supreme Lord? So again, this is one of the qualities of the Mahabhagavata, is that he sees everything eternally situated within the Supreme Lord. Therefore, for such a devotee, he's seeing the Lord everywhere. So where's the question of seeing Maya for him? So everyone else who is not a Mahabhagavata, and so it was said in this, in the synonyms, the word meanings, that everybody is kalaha, the envious, almost everybody. Almost everyone is envious. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of the lecture, that this very fact organizes a lot of data. It's, why even as devotees, sometimes it can be just so very difficult to get along with each other. So very difficult. Sometimes it's not that we only get good advice, but sometimes we get bad advice, because the person we may be getting advice from himself may not be pure, or at least fully pure. So, because of that fact, that's why, especially in the lower stages of devotional service, we don't want to try to, as they say in American slang, wing it. We don't want to try to, just make stuff up as we go along or follow our heart or anything like that. It must be strictly according to Shastra. So therefore, very interesting fact is that when we talk about advice, and especially we're talking about shiksha, so we're talking about shiksha, we're talking about diksha, we're talking about shiksha guru, we're talking about diksha guru. And it may be the case, and in fact, according to this, since the envious is almost everyone, it's most likely the case that if we get a guru in this day and age, this is Kali Yuga, remember, that even such a person himself may not necessarily be a Mahabhagavata. He may not even have that that vision. So at least there's like a minimum threshold, for such persons. So we're talking about now gurus who may not necessarily be Mahabhagavatas. So how is that possible? Well, first of all, Srila Prabhupada says it's possible. At in the last paragraph of the purport to the Nectar of Instruction, Text 5, Srila Prabhupada mentions that a Kanishta Adhikari and a Madhyama Adhikari may also accept disciples. He says, but such disciples are generally find it troublesome to make advancement under their insufficient guidance. Okay? So it's a paradox. If someone can only give insufficient guidance, then how can they be guru? Isn't it? How can such a person be guru? So we have a certain paradox here. We have to do this, what's called samanvaya. We have to reconcile certain statements. Because many times Srila Prabhupada, most of the time when Srila Prabhupada is saying that is saying that one should be a guru, he's saying that one should be a Mahabhagavata. This is generally, you'll see this all throughout. And so sometimes some devotees are a little confused about this. How can people who are not Mahabhagavatas be guru? How are they allowed to be guru in the first place? So the answer is it's according to the Shastras. We follow the direction of the Supreme Lord. And so we see that in the case of many devotees, or say like the Bhagavatam, even a simple woman like Suniti, actually her name, Suniti, means good advice, isn't it? Suniti. Niti is like policy and like that, good advice. So her son Dhruva was very upset by the cruel words of her stepmother and by the neglect of his father. Now what to do? So Suniti gave him the good advice to worship Lord Narayan, not be envious, not have any enmity towards his stepmother or father and so forth. Even though she admits, yes, they're wretched, but still, she's given the right advice. You should follow, you should take it up. And Lord Narayan, he himself can give you such a kingdom. You don't even have to take birth in the womb of Mother Saruchi, although she said like that, but Lord Narayan, he can give directly. What will stop him? He's the Supreme Lord. So therefore, Dhruva Maharaj, performing severe tapasya, went to the forest, met Narada Muni, took initiation and instruction from him, and became perfect. And at the end of the life, as Srila Prabhupada comments, he says that even if that the example of Suniti proves that if one has a disciple who executes devotional service as wonderfully as Dhruva Maharaj, then such a disciple, by his devotional service, can carry his Shiksha Guru, Diksha Guru back to Godhead with him. So that's how merciful the Supreme Lord and his devotees are. And so therefore, in that case, Dhruva Maharaj, he's going back to Godhead, and he thought of his mother who gave him the clue, and then the Lord took him back. It also took Suniti, made the arrangement that Suniti should also go back with him as well. So this is the mercy. Even if one is not a Mahabhagavata, one may be Kanishta Adhikari, one may be Uttama, may be Madhyama Adhikari. Such an Adhikari, such a devotee can still give mercy to the Supreme Lord. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada says that such persons, they can also be guru. But the problem is, such persons do not necessarily have the quality of not being envious. And so therefore we see so many things in this that happen that we think that shouldn't happen, but they nonetheless happen. Gurus falling down, gurus doing things that gurus shouldn't do, and so forth. So this should give us also a little solace. Those of us who have been around a little bit, we should understand that, well, these things happen. These things happen. And so therefore the necessity of a society in which these things are minimized. So one thing to understand is that we have a Varnashram society, and that living according to the Varnashram principles will help minimize these things, but they will not make them go away. So those two things. There was a lecture I was listening to. It was a ladies' meeting, and so they were talking about a lot of the questions were about, from ladies who, they've had some difficulty. They maybe married a man who was not so kind to them, and then they end up divorced or abused and so forth. So there's some reluctance by some people. Well, if I try to follow these rules and this happens to me, then maybe we shouldn't follow these rules at all. But we can see even outside the society that these things are going on. And the only way to understand what is going on is to understand according to the revealed scriptures. So so according to the scriptures, we understand that the source, as indicated here, is this envy of the Supreme Lord. So as long as we remain envious, there are going to be problems. But we should also be intelligent, like Suniti. Now when she was talking with Dhruva Maharaj about the cause of her own misfortune, she said, yes, actually, your stepmother Suruchi is correct, and I'm an unfortunate woman, and because of my past karma, I'm in this situation. You'll notice that she's not blaming anybody else. She's not blaming that, Suruchi has been mean and we're going to do a revolution and somehow poison her or something like that. Well, there's another case of that. This is Maharaj Chitraketu. He had 10 million wives, but none of them bore him a son. And so finally, when one of his queens, by the mercy of Angira Rishi, gave him a son, all the other queens were jealous, and they ended up poisoning Maharaj Chitraketu's son, Harshashok. So even in Vaishnava society, even among very highly elevated, very cultured persons, this envy is there. It's like almost all pervasive. You can't get away from it. It's almost like being a fish in water. The water is everywhere, and you're a fish. Even if you're not envious, there are other people who are envious of you, and so forth. So those queens ended up poisoning that child. So there's envy, even among so-called Vaishnavas, people who are aspiring to be Vaishnavas. So so Suniti, she was also not blaming anybody for her own troubles. She's a far-seeing woman. She's a very, very enlightened woman. And so her advice to Dhruva Maharaj was strictly in line with the Shastras. So we read Srila Prabhupada's purports. And we see, Srila Prabhupada is explaining very nicely how Suniti, her advice, this is the advice of the great sages. So therefore, even somebody in the lower stages, if they hold very fast to the feet of the Vaishnavas and the great sages in the Shastras, even they can give good advice. Even they can give, even if they are not even free from this infection, being infected with envy, even they can, by the mercy of the Lord, even they can deliver other people. So how this mercy comes, just like you may be drowning, and you're not going to say, if somebody throws you a life preserver, you know they have these rings in the pools. You throw someone a life preserver and they're drowning, and you throw it to them, and then they can grab onto it and they can, at least not drown. So some people, so if it so happens that someone who's not the world's fastest swimmer throws you a life preserver, maybe he can't even swim himself, but he still nonetheless throws you the life preserver, he saves your life. So in the same way, Kanishka Guru and Madhyama Guru, they also give mercy. They can also give mercy. They can give holy name, they can give instruction, and so forth. They can also give good instruction. Again, the caveat there is that sometimes they don't give good instruction. That may also happen. Therefore, guru nasasyat. One should not be a guru if he cannot deliver his dependents from the cycle of birth and death. And therefore, we see in the pastime of Bali Maharaj that the Lord himself, Vamandev, came to begging for some charity. And he can understand that this is, this Brahmana has come. And Shukracharya even warned him. He said, this is Lord Vishnu. He's going to take everything away from you. So Shukracharya, his guru, he knew who the Lord was, but still, he advised against surrendering to the Lord. Because envy, very difficult to get away from, even very highly enlightened, highly cultured people. Still, even they know what is right, still this infection of envy is, it deviates you, it keeps you in the material world. So, therefore, Bali Maharaj, he had the intelligence. He's Mahajana. So he had the intelligence, let me surrender to the Lord. And he did. So somehow or other, the Krishna consciousness movement is, the Krishna consciousness movement is being spread all over the world. And many of those people who are spreading this movement all over the world themselves are not Mahabhagavatas, but they're assisting the Mahabhagavatas. So, therefore, under the guidance of such great souls and according to the Shastras, they are also delivering people. So yes, we know, it's an irony that we ourselves may be envious, and yet we're preaching to people not to be envious. Isn't it? We know that we shouldn't be envious, but we're still envious. So what to do about that? What to do about it is to continue to take shelter of the process. We chant Hare Krishna, just like we chant Hare Krishna, we chant offensively, so the recommended process is to take shelter of the holy name, and gradually those offenses will be given. So gradually, by taking shelter of the pure devotee and taking shelter of the holy name and carrying on with their service, gradually we become free from these offenses and make progress towards actually realizing Krishna in full, according to the highest standard of devotional service. So it's a very interesting paradox. We preach to people to become envious, to not be envious, and yet we ourselves are struggling with giving up envy. Not exactly struggling, but in the meantime, as we're conducting our lives, sometimes we have these, as Vaishnavas, we have these fights among each other, like, Suruchi, there are Suruchis, and there are ladies, men and ladies willing to even poison, even kill another Vaishnava, another soul, just for their sense gratification. Even though they know better, So that's just the nature of the world. Envy is a very difficult thing to get rid of. So there's a lot in this verse, in summary, that the Vaishnava, the topmost Vaishnava, is just like a desire tree. He grants all desires. He can, that a Vaishnava, when a Vaishnava prays the Lord, even if he is niskinchana, even if he has no material desire, he nonetheless, he nonetheless prays the Lord for a benediction. But the kind of benediction that the Bhagavad prays for is not for his own self, but for the welfare of the entire world and the envious. And then, somehow or other, that we're in this mission, Srila Prabhupada's mission, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, that even though we're not perfect, still it is possible for even imperfect people to give mercy to others. And if by their grace they become very great Vaishnavas, then they can carry us back to Godhead. So I would like to end here and ask if there are any questions. Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhu, the definition of envy is what we've heard from Srila Prabhupada's writings, para utkrishta sahanam iti matsarta. Not able to tolerate other person's advancement is a symptom of envy. Mm-hmm. So as practicing Vaishnavas, we are many times told in classes that you should be humble, we should be respectful to devotees, we should not be envious. But I feel that practical demonstrations of envious behavior are not clarified to devotees, or they themselves are not aware of that. So although we try to become humble in our dealings, but still that envy is still there in the heart. So what are some clear symptoms that even as devotees we are harboring that envy within our hearts?
That we are what? Last part?
Symptoms or characteristics of envy that are practicing Kanishta or a Madhyama Vaishnava harbors or exhibits?
Well, if you look at the the gradation of the difference between the Kanishta, Madhyama, and Uttama Adhikaris, okay, you see it's a progression of becoming least realized to fully realized. So Madhya, the Kanishta Adhikari is materialistic devotee. Definition given in Bhagavatam is that Archayameva Hare Pujam Yasharayeti. So he performs the puja and the worship of the Lord with great faith, but he does not know how to behave towards other devotees, and he's understood to be materialistic. Okay, so materialistic, that's the opposite of spiritual, right? So he sees things. He doesn't see everything in relation to the Lord, which is what the Bhagavad does, right? Bhagavad sees everything in relation to the Lord. But that's not the Kanishta Adhikari. Okay. But he's an Adhikari nonetheless. He has some right. He's taken up the worship of the Lord in some faith. So he's better than the karmis. The karmis are completely materialistic. They're bewildered. So Kanishta Adhikari is not a karmi, but he's not perfect in his realization. Madhyama Adhikari. So the difference between Madhyama Adhikari and Kanishta Adhikari is that Madhyama Adhikari knows how to behave with others. Okay? So he sees everything as, Ishvare Tadadineshu Balisheshu Dvichatscha Prema Maitri Kripo Peksha Yakaroti Samadhyamaha. So the Madhyama Adhikari, so he's more elevated than the Kanishta Adhikari. He sees the Supreme Lord, he makes friends with the devotees, he's friendly towards the devotees, he is merciful to the innocent, and those are considered the Kanishtas who are willing to take instruction. And then he's upeksha, he's avoids the envious. Okay, so he's more, but even the Madhyama Adhikari, he does not have the vision of the Uttama Adhikari, which is he sees everything as situated with the Supreme Lord. So even he's a bit of a separatist in that. He's more elevated, but he's still not at that Madhyama level. So it all comes down, to answer your question, and I give those definitions by way of demonstrating, that the mark of seeing how envious you are or how little envy you are is how much you're engaged in Krishna's actual seva. Isn't it? Because if you're not completely engaged in the Lord's seva, then you have some separate interests. Okay? Vyavasayatmaka buddhi ekaha kurunandana. So if you don't have that, vyavasayatmika intelligence, then that means your intelligence, you've got other projects going on. Okay, I've got Krishna consciousness project, but then I've got a side hustle going on. Okay, I've got something else going on in my life, and then Krishna's there. Maybe Krishna's mostly there. For those representing the Krishna consciousness movement, we would hope that that's generally the case. But oftentimes it's not. That maybe, okay, there's a little bit here, there's something else going on, that's shouldn't be going on. We don't need to give examples. There's, plenty of examples like that. So therefore, in Nectar of Instruction 5, along with being unenvious, that the highly advanced devotee, shushushaya bhajana vigyamananyana nindari shunyaridam ipsita sangalagya, that he is incessantly engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. He is 24 hours engaged. So that's how you know you're not being envious, by that quality. Because if you're not 24 hours engaged, then you're doing something envious. It's a simple proposition. So, that's basically it. It's that simple. So most of us, the vast majority of us, have a ways to go before we get there. And then, on the way, and this is a very powerful, when bad things happen to devotees, this is a very liberating fact to know that these things are happening to us because we're envious and we've been engaged in envious activities. So even just that little bit of advancement, even that little bit of advancement, even for the Kanishta and especially the Madhyama Adhikari, that frees one from so many miseries. Not completely, because you're still a separatist. You're still engaged in there's still some envy there. So you're going to get beat up. But at least why you're getting beat up. Just like Suniti, she knew, I'm getting beat up because of my own, impious activities, my own separatism. So, any other questions? Someone ask something? So, if there's nothing else, then would you like to make any comments, Prabhuji? I don't think.
Hare Krishna, thank you. So let me speak into English because some devotees do not follow Hindi. So I will speak in English. So here Prahlad Maharaj is desiring Khalha Prasidatam, those envious, they should they should be pleased. So this is desire of Prahlad Maharaj. And Prabhupada says this is not practical, that they will be pleased. So because they are envious, and his father was envious, Prahlad Maharaj, so Narsimhadev killed his father, and Prahlad Maharaj was joyful. He also was happy, and he said, Modeta sadhurapi vrishchika sarape hatya. The snake is envious, the scorpion is envious. So when they are killed, sadhu is also happy. Sadhu is also joyful. Modeta sadhurapi. So Prahlad Maharaj is praying to Lord Nrsimhadev, and he is feeling, he is expressing his pleasure that his father has been killed. Although he begged that his father get salvation, he should not go to hell, but he wants that his consciousness also should be corrected. Prahlad Maharaj does not want that his father come back to life and he started tormenting everybody. So this is good that he has been killed and he has been punished. It is good. And now his consciousness should be rectified and he should not get a hellish punishment. So this is the desire of Prahlad Maharaj. So the devotee also desires envious should get punished and his consciousness should be rectified and he should not go to hell. Better he become Vaishnava. So in this is the point. Prabhupada also wanted Mr. Nair to be rectified, but he was not rectified. And he told that he will personally remove the deities from the temple. Then Prabhupada also prayed for him, prayed Lord Nrsimhadev, and he was killed by Lord Nrsimhadev. So this is also the point that the Vaishnava is envious of the enviousness. So this is also service of Krishna when we become envious of enviousness. So this becomes positive. Negative, multiplied by negative, becomes positive. So when the devotee becomes envious of the enviousness, so this is also positive. This is also service of Krishna. Thank you. Hare Krishna.